Howdy, and welcome to the channel. And today, we're going to be going over Ryobi's grease gun, model P3410, and it came out a couple of years ago now from Ryobi. And a few specs on it is it will do up to 10,000 PSI, and it will go up to 7.5 ounces worth of grease at any given time. So, I've actually used this quite a bit, and for those of you who have skid steers and other such items, I actually use this one to add pressure to a skid steer whenever you have the tracks on the skid steers, not the wheels, but the actual rubber tracks or metal tracks. You have a piston that comes out on that front wheel. You got to have a lot of pressure, and if you're sitting there doing that with a manual grease gun, man, you got to pump that thing in order to get that front arm to push out onto the track. This actually gets it almost all the way there with how much pressure this gun sends out. I had to do a little fine tweaking with a hand model, but man, that saved me so much time. I would just attach this and go to town on it. It shoved the piston out, and it did everything that I needed to do, which was great because where the track came off, I was in a really bad hole in the backyard here. So that made it really nice to be able to have something like this. So the gun itself is pretty standard with features. It has a light on the end that's going to light up your surface, and as you can tell, it stays on for a little period of time. And this stays on actually significantly more than a lot of their other products. And this makes it really nice because if you're crawling up underneath a big piece of heavy equipment, then you're going to want to have that light to illuminate the area where you're going to be at. So you tap the trigger, it illuminates, and you're able to see what you're doing down there. So for transportation on this particular model, Ryobi has installed a lock on it, and if you press the trigger lock, nothing will activate. The light doesn't come on, and the unit doesn't actually do any grease. Whenever you have it unlocked, if you lightly press the trigger, you can actually click on the light, and then whenever you're ready to activate it, you do a full trigger pull, and that will keep the light activated as well as send grease through the grease fitting. Now, it comes with a standard grease fitting from Ryobi. However, I have upgraded to this lock and lube because the standard one is the typical standard ones. Every now and then you get the silly things stuck, and you gotta work and release the pressure and get the silly things off, and they can be cumbersome. This one doesn't have that issue with the lock and lube. You simply pull down on it. There are 4 jaws that open up, and it allows it to release. Now, the way that this system works is you simply undo the end, pull off this entire connector, and inside of it, you're going to have one of these standard grease tubes, which is 14 ounces worth of grease. And these are typically how most grease guns work. Now, if you're one of those shops that has a big vat of grease, you can actually repack these, and you don't have to buy multiple tubes. But if you're a typical home consumer, then just buy these tubes. You can get them anywhere, and these are extremely simple to apply. You simply open this up. Before we open it though, you always want to pull out your end piece and have it locked out. And as you can hear, there is some suction that happens there. This currently is full, so I'm not going to perform this action. I don't want to do that and waste a bunch of grease. But you'll pull out the plunger and you'll lock it down. And you see, to lock it down, you simply pull the shaft down, and it actually locks into its own special groove that's on the end cap. Then you simply undo the end cap, and from there, you pull off this cap off of your new grease, and you can see the grease that's down in there. And then you take this, after you've extracted the old tube, and you slide this up into the case. Once you have it into the case, that is when you will pull this pull tab on the back. For those of you who are old boomers, you'll definitely remember pull tabs with beers.
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
So you do the pull tab, pull that off, then you reattach your end, and once you have your back reattached, you simply let the shaft go, and now the system is ready to be primed. So in order to prime it, there is a primer valve right up here at the front. Then you open the primer valve, and then you're going to pull the trigger, and eventually some grease will come out here whenever you have the trigger pulled like that. Now mine's already primed, so mine's just going to be spitting grease out over here, but you'll see a little worm of grease coming up through the hole here. Once you have that, you simply tighten down, not too tight.
Don't forget it!
But you tighten down the primer valve and you're ready to go. From that point forward, if you've not had anything in the tube yet, if this is brand new, then you're going to have to press a little bit with the trigger to allow the grease to come all the way through. But once it starts flowing through the top, you simply stop. Now watch how quickly the grease flow stops whenever you let go of the trigger. So there's one, maybe two extra squirts that come out whenever you let go of the trigger. So that's a pretty good response time. Now with a handheld, the second you stop squeezing, that's whenever it stops coming out. So this one's still going to have some moments where some grease will come out on you, but that's okay. Now it does have storage on both sides for your hose. So as you can see, we have storage on this side, and we also have storage on this side. So no matter which side you're on, you can store the hose on it. I've used this now for several years. I've used it with our tractor. I have used it, as I mentioned earlier, with the skid steer in order to push that pivot arm out and that piston out, and it worked great. I have had zero issues with this unit. I'm very pleased with it, and I couldn't be happier compared to one of the old manual grease guns. So for me, I would absolutely recommend purchasing this grease gun if you're in the Ryobi ecosystem and you have a need for a grease gun. It's great. If you're not in the Ryobi ecosystem, this is one of those tools for me that would actually drive me to want to be in the Ryobi ecosystem because this thing is great. I love this particular tool. It has come in so handy whenever it comes to there's Zerk fittings all over the place. You get them in your cars, you get them in your tractors, you get them on your lawnmowers, you get them on so many different items that are out there, and this will allow you to grease all of those a lot easier than a manual grease gun. So if you have any questions about the Ryobi grease gun, model P3410, please be sure to leave them in the comments below. And if you have any questions about any of the tools that are up here or just comments in general, be sure to leave them in the comments below as well, like this one. I really appreciate all the conversation that goes on down there and all the thoughtful comments and helpful comments that are coming from around the world. It's really cool to see everybody unite for their love of tools, not just Ryobi, but of all the tools. And it's very cool to see all of that interaction and how passionate everybody is about their tools. Thanks for watching.